Hi, everyone. It is I, Chris. I have my handy limoncello La Croix. Delicious. I spent the morning, this is fun. I want to tell you guys about this. I spent the morning co-hosting a show called The Rising, which The Hill does. The Hill and News Nation are they're kind of a co-company. And I am a contributor at News Nation. So they asked me, hey, do you want to co-host this show? And I was like, sure. So you can go over to the Hills YouTube channel and check out the show. It was cool. We did like an hour. It was great. We interviewed Rokana from California. We talked about Gavin Newsome in 2028. All kinds of fun stuff. Anyway, so check that out. Thank you for joining me. It's Friday. It is 90 degrees here in Washington. Hot, hot, hot. Let's see. If you're here, I hope that means you're a subscriber to my channel. If you're not, go ahead and fix that glitch right now. We are over 82,000, almost 83,000. So we're building, which is awesome. I want to get to 100 because I want one of those plaques. Apparently you get like a plaque if you get to 100,000 from YouTube. So that's what I'm aiming for. So please subscribe if you haven't. You can ask questions in the chat. If you want to make a donation to me here today, the best way to do that is there's a little rectangle with a money sign in it, the super chat. If you make a donation there, first of all, I'm hugely thankful. Second of all, I will bump your question up to the top of the list, although I will try to get to everybody, almost every question that I can. The other thing I will say is if you don't know this, I hope you do, but if you don't, I write a newsletter. In addition to all the YouTube stuff I do, I write a newsletter every single day. That's over at Substack. If you want to, go to chriscillizza.substack.com or just type my name, Chris, and last name Cillizza. Go into Substack. And you can check that out. About half the content's free, half of it you have to pay for. It's $6 a month, $60 a year. Okay, publicity out of the way. Let's get started. And again, I always say this, ask questions, because if you don't have questions, I won't have answers. And then this chat isn't very fun. All right, here we go. Adrian Weber. Adrian, thank you for your donation. That is incredibly kind and very much appreciated. Adrian says, great chats with Margie O'Mara and Chuck Todd this week. Yeah, so I talked to Margie O'Mara, Democratic pollster, and I talked to Chuck Todd, former NBC, former Meet the Press, now the host of the Chuck Todd cast. I talk to Chuck every Monday. Adrian also says, I learned a lot from the crypto video. Me too. I love that video. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. My burning question, this is Adrian's burning question, Celtics or Knicks night? It's going to be the Knicks, Adrian. I know the Celtics sort of out of pride came out and won game 5, but they're losing this one. At Madison Square Garden, without Tatum, they're losing. That's my belief. MJ Jewel, thank you so much. No question, but a donation. That's very much appreciated. All right, hold on. I got to stay hydrated. It's hot out. Human NC. Hi, Chris. Here from the UK. Dems tried to focus on abortion in the 2024. It didn't seem to work. Do you think it will in 2026 and 2028? Secondly, why is abortion such a central issue in the U.S.? Well, I don't know if it didn't work, in 2024. I will say other things mattered more. People were sick of Joe Biden. They didn't think the economy was good. So I think some people, abortion and Roe v. Wade being overturned did matter, but it definitely didn't matter as much as in 2022. I don't think it will be a huge issue in 2026 and 2028. I think Donald Trump will be the issue in 2026. It will be a question of, do you mostly like the direction of the country, or do you want a check on Donald Trump's power? That, I think, is where we're headed in 2026. 2028, it will definitely be an issue in the Democratic primary, although I would assume all the candidates would kind of be in a similar place. I don't know if it'll be an issue in the general election. It could be. Why is abortion such an issue in the U.S.? Because I think this is a short answer to a very complicated and good question. I think it's because there are, it speaks for a broader set of sort of privacy and issues and who can tell someone what to do with their body, and just sort of how women have been treated, how women are viewed, what rights women should have, what rights they do have, sort of practically. I think it's sort of it's an issue that touches a lot of other issues and touches a lot of people. And it's obviously deeply emotional and deeply personal. So I think that's why. I know it's not as big an issue in other countries, but it absolutely is in ours. Dan W., what happens if the Supreme Court rules in Trump's favor on birthright citizenship? Would it be moving forward, or is it retroactive? What is your prediction? New York Times said yesterday the court seems split over a few pieces of it. Okay, so I don't know about retroactive or not if they overturned it. What I will say is, having read a lot and talked a lot about this, I think the questions of how big nationwide injunctions against executive branch judicial orders, how broad they can be, is something the court is divided on. No question. I don't really think they're particularly divided on whether birthright citizenship can be taken away. Like I said, I think that's either a 9-0 or an 8-1 vote, maybe 7-2. So I don't see it being overturned. They may well rule that you can't have a nationwide injunction against something the president says is an executive order. And that would obviously apply beyond just birthright citizenship. It would apply to all his executive orders. That's one of the reasons the Trump people are focused on this. So I do think there's questions on that piece. I don't think there's questions on the sort of broader the broader birthright citizenship stuff. Use News, you News. Use News, thank you for the donation. What caused the apparent rift with Bibi and Trump? So I don't know. I mean, they've had an on-again, off-again relationship. It's, for Bibi, Trump, I think, has been useful in that Netanyahu would never be able to stay in power if probably not for October 7th. Because I think, he is always the most hawkish when it comes to Israel, Gaza, West Bank, etc. This has allowed him, I think, for that to work. Trump has broadly been supportive of that. So it was always sort of a political marriage of convenience. I don't totally know how much of a rift there is. They don't have the same interest. Trump wants ultimately to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And the way that he thinks he does that is he either ends the war between Ukraine and Russia or ends this Hamas-Israel conflict, right? And settles the Middle East once and for all. I'm not sure that can happen, but I think in his mind, that's how he thinks. Netanyahu is not focused on that, right? Netanyahu does not want a deal unless it is a deal entirely on Israel's terms, and that's not going to happen. So I think it's sort of naturally a rift there, just because they're not solving for the same thing. Brett Green, Chris, what are your thoughts on nationwide injunctions? I can see both the good and the bad with them. I mean, me too, Brett. Like, take it out of the Trump context, because I think so many people either love Trump or hate him that it bogs it down. Do you want a president who is able to issue orders and then a court system, even a lower level, that can say, actually, no, that's not a thing, and delay it forever? I don't think that's a great system. At the same time, I do think the judicial branch does matter, and they should have some power to say this, like in the case of birthright citizenship, this appears to be unconstitutional, so we're going to suspend it until we issue a final ruling. So I'm with you. Like I sort of land on both sides of that coin, which, by the way, I feel that way a lot. Matthew White. I don't get why people are upset about accepting a free $400 million airplane, especially when we've been trading with Qatar and Saudi Arabia for years, and everyone knows what happened to Khashoggi. Well, Matthew, I understand that. I mean, that's sort of a very pragmatic view of all this, and I understand it. The only thing I'll say is, it seems to me a clear bribe just straight out in the open. Like, yes, we have been dealing with them. Yes, Mohammed bin Salman has been implicated in knowing that Jamal Khashoggi was going to be kidnapped and murdered. And we still do business with Saudi Arabia because it's good for our business, right? Because they're very wealthy. They invest in the U.S., right? Very practical. This seems to me, this isn't about like what's good for the country, what's good for the United States. I don't think it really matters what kind of plane Donald Trump is flying on around. This is more about what's good for Donald Trump. Like, this is a gift to Donald Trump. After he leaves office, it will be donated, according to the reporting I've seen, to the Trump Presidential Library. So, this isn't really about, okay, well, this is good for the country. So, yes, it is awful that they murdered Jamal Khashoggi, but we're going to keep doing business with them. This is, okay, well, this country has a lot of questionable ties and funding, and they're giving a present to the President of the United States at $400 million. To me, that's different. Tabby D, from sunny California, and love your show. California, lovely. I think 28 will either be Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom. AOC seems way too polarizing a figure. Do you think Newsom's rightward shift will be enough to win? Well, Tabby, I don't know. You're probably more optimistic on Newsom than I am. If I had to say today, with the candidates we know who the final three are, I think I would probably say Shapiro, Buttigieg, and AOC, if I had to. Newsome would be on the outside looking in, as would Gretchen Whitmer. So, like, I just think Newsome's problem is he's from California and he was the mayor of San Francisco and the governor of California. Yes, he can move on policy. You know, he's cracking down on homelessness in the state now. He's moved more to the center on trans stuff. The problem is his roots are in San Francisco and California, and I think a lot of people won't vote for him just because of that. So I don't know if that works. Buttigieg, to me, is a very serious candidate. I made a video about Buttigieg earlier this week. If you haven't checked it out, I hope you do. I went through the pros and cons of him. You know, the number one con is this thing that's very hard to put a finger on, which is, okay, he's a gay married man. We've never had a gay man be president. How big an impediment or not an impediment is that? I don't know. We'll find out, I think, though, because he's going to run. Joe Mama, Joe, thank you for your donation. Joe says this, does MAGA follow the Trump kids or his deepest supporters, for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for the Republican nomination going forward? Why do we struggle to remember financial realities of Republican leaders failing economically, but Wall Street is more permissive? Okay, I don't totally understand the second part of the question, so just re-ask it if you can. On the first part, I think that's a real question, right? Because, like, you have the political son of Donald Trump, the political heir, who is J.D. Vance, maybe Marco Rubio, and then you have the actual son of Donald Trump, which is Donald Trump Jr. So, like, who matters more there? Maybe Don Jr. doesn't run and we don't even, you know, he defers to Vance and we don't even have this conversation. But I do think that, to me, is the dichotomy I'm looking at, Joe. Like, that's what I wonder about. Is, like, if Donald Trump says, you know what, I kind of would like to run for president, does the MAGA base of the party follow Don Jr. or does it follow J.D. Vance? My guess would be, in a situation like that, it follows Don Jr., but I'm not totally sure. Mr. Wolf, what do you predict will be the next Democratic Party nominee be a moderate or someone from the far left? I don't know. I also actually think, Mr. Wolf, that may be a little bit of an outdated way to think about it. I do think that what you'll see is, I think this fight idea is really important. You know, I wrote about this. I've talked about it. The overwhelming sense of Democrats, from the general populace and from Democrats, is that Democrats are weak. That's like, if you say Democrats, people say weak. They have to solve for that much more than liberal or moderate or conservative. They have to show that they're willing to stand up and be tough on issues they care about and for people they care about. That, to me, and that doesn't have to be a moderate thing or a liberal thing. That's just a you got to stand up for yourself thing. Maurice Playford. Maurice, thank you for the donation. And I haven't seen you in this chat before, so thank you so much for joining us. Maurice asks, how can Carolyn Leavitt not understand the Library of Congress? You fired the librarian because she hands out bad books for children. Okay, well, Maurice, look, Carolyn Leavitt is just a mouthpiece for Donald Trump. Right. So Carolyn Leavitt didn't make the decision to get rid of the Librarian of Congress. Donald Trump, or someone in Donald Trump's senior orbit, did. She's just defending it. And so, yeah, she's going to defend it by saying, like, the librarian likes too many woke books. I mean, let's be honest. The Library of Congress, I believe their mission is to have a copy of every book that is in print. So, like, there are woke books in there, but there are also stuff that the woke community wouldn't like at all. She's just a figurehead of what Trump wants to get rid of, which is, in his mind, sort of like the woke mind virus. But no, Carolyn Leavitt, I mean, look, she might believe it, but she didn't make that call, right? I mean, she's just along for the ride at some level. VB says, which president or presidents do you think had the most bipartisan support throughout their administration since the Vietnam War, and why? You know, the 80s, Reagan had support from lots of Democrats. In the modern era, though, which I kind of date from 2000 till now, George W. Bush is the one after 9/11. His approval rating got up into the 80s or low 90s. Now, it didn't last. And I think that's a function of the fact that we just don't have, our current political environment is defined by polarization. It's very hard for a president, barring a massive catastrophe that he or she is seen as handling extremely well, it's very hard for them to get over 56% of the vote. So, you know, Reagan was pretty popular. I mean, he won overwhelmingly both times. Obama, Obama did have some Republicans voting for him. I mean, he won overwhelmingly twice. So probably the two of them. But George W. Bush is the one I think of when I think of like astronomically high approval rating from both parties. And I think that's a function of solely because it was 9/11. Sam's still a Cillizza fan. Hey, Sam. Sam says, who caves first on the big, beautiful bill? Deficit hawks or blue state Republicans? How does Johnson get this passed through the House? So just before I came on, I saw that 5 conservative kind of fiscal hawks voted against the one big, beautiful bill in the budget committee. So obviously they're kind of now back to the drawing board. If I had to guess, Sam, the moderates probably give more. I don't think it's 100% one side gives and 0% the other, but I would guess the moderates give a little bit more because I think there's going to be spending. It's all about how are we paying for all of this. When you do a no tax on tips and you extend the Trump tax cuts, etc., you get into they're spending massive amounts of money. It's, well, how do we pay for all this? So I think probably the fiscal conservatives will get a little more of their way, but I do think they will pass something. I don't think it's going to happen today, not next week, but they will pass something because I think they have to, because they have to do something, and they're not going to do much other than this. And I think they have to get tax cuts to the public, a public shaken from Donald Trump's tariffs. That's my guess. Thomas Davenport, do you think Trump will react to the announcement that Walmart is raising prices and lower the tariffs to 0 instead of 30% now during the pause? He might respond on True Social or something to the Walmart announcement about raising prices, but no, I don't think he's going to lower tariffs to 0%. I think he's going to mostly leave it where it is until there's more political pain from the tariffs, right? The stock market is starting to come back up. His poll numbers are starting to come back up. This is all directly tied to tariffs, right? He's paused them, people. And so as long as that movement continues to work, I don't think he'll do much, but watch sort of his political standing. That'll tell you what he'll do politically. Kornheiser 10. Chris, thanks for dressing up today and not wearing an undershirt. Just to be clear, I took a bunch of stuff for a video I made earlier this week where I have a white t-shirt on. That is a Gap t-shirt. That is like a dressy t-shirt. I had khakis on. I had white sneakers on. I was not dressing like a hobo. Like, it was just a nice white t-shirt, which you can't see. Like, look, I have jeans on today. Okay? So you can't see from the waist down. I thought I looked pretty good. Hip dad or whatever. Chris Claim says, greetings from Munich. Hello, Germany. Hope you guys are doing okay. G. Wright. Hello, Chris. In a 2028 Republican primary, how would Rubio and Vance try to differentiate themselves? Good question. A little bit to be determined because we're in 2025 and they both have really prominent roles in the Trump administration. I think Rubio would say, look, I know how to deal with a really dangerous world in a way that is sort of Trumpian. Because he's going to have more fun. He was more experienced in foreign. He was in the Senate longer. He did more stuff in foreign policy, national security than Vance did when he was in the Senate. Obviously, Rubio is now the Secretary of State. So I would guess Rubio pushes in that direction, more international foreign, and Vance is more, we're going to take care of you at home, MAGA. That's what I would guess the dynamic would shape up as, but I don't totally know. AB says, any thoughts on Trump's comments on Comey today? I assume this is about the 86-47 thing. I have not seen what Trump has said. It's idiotic of James Comey to put shells on the beach that say that. I don't think James Comey was saying that someone should kill Donald Trump. I think he was trying to be wry and funny that we should get rid of Donald Trump. I don't think get rid of means murder, but it was a stupid thing for James Comey to do. And my guess is Donald Trump is taking full advantage. Chris Vetter, do you think the Wisconsin Supreme Court approves new congressional maps? Mark Elias has proven to be quite successful in these lawsuits. He has been. I don't totally know, to be honest, about the specifics of the Wisconsin map. But obviously it's a swing state, and obviously any movement there could matter because it's a 3-seat Republican majority. So if you kind of, move 2 or 3 seats more friendly to Democrats or more friendly to Republicans, it matters. All right, let me take a minute. We're about 20 minutes in. I'm going to go about 45 today. I got to go work out after this, and so I have to change. Here's what I'll say. If you have not thumbsed up, if you have not liked this video, this live stream, just go do it now. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. It helps me grow. So it's easy. So just go hit that button. 2, if you haven't asked a question, please do so. 3, if you want to donate to me, if you want to support what I'm doing, the best way to do it, the easiest way right now is just hit super chat, that little thing in the bottom there with the $sign on it, and I will bump your question up to the top. You can also go to buymeacoffee.com and you can find me on there. You can just make a donation. It's not just for coffee, but if you want to make a donation or a standing donation every month or whatever, it's much appreciated. Independent journalism is not easy, nor is it free. When I go to pay the mortgage on my house, I don't say, hey man, I'm an independent journalist. And the bank says, oh, don't worry about your mortgage. I still got to pay all the bills. So if you can support me, I appreciate that very much. All right, let's keep going. Isaac Westerling Sauer, great name. I signed up for the year. What else do I get for the paid subscription? Are the Democrats just falling into the narratives the right is starting? Okay, so Isaac, thank you for allowing me for that. When you sign up for a year subscription over at my Substack, you get access to all of my content. So that's my podcast every week with Chuck Todd. That's my 2028 rankings. That's my Friday mailbag that I'm almost done with, where I take people's questions and post them and answers every Friday. It's a lot of other goodies too. If you want to splurge for $500 a year, you become a founding member, a member of the Chris Cillizza Inner Circle, where you get my cell phone number so that you can text me if you have questions, and 4 30-minute Zoom calls once a quarter throughout the year, just me and you. So I hope that makes sense. Isaac, to your question, are the Democrats just falling to the narratives the right is starting? A little bit, yeah. I do think the Kilmar-Abrego-Garcia thing was a mistake, politically speaking. The only place that Donald Trump is doing pretty well right now in terms of approval is border security and deportation. Everything else, economy, everything else, people do not like what he's doing. So my view is, don't fight him on his strongest suit. Fight him in all these places where people are already ready to believe he's not doing a good job, most notably the economy. And I think you have to be careful about getting sucked into that. Let's see. Hold on. I'm scrolling back up. Andy Smith, should Washington Wizards fans be pissed that they're picking 6th? Yes! We had a 14% chance of being the number 1 pick and getting Cooper Flagg. 6th was the worst we could do given our record, and we got 6th. Suckola. Adam Del Judas. Chris, do you think Marco Rubio has become a true believer of MAGA and Trump, or do you think he simply wants to be president and will cast aside any morals necessary to get there? B. I mean, I don't think he disagrees with everything Donald Trump says, but no, Marco Rubio is not like a natural MAGA guy. He's like an establishment figure, but he sees the way the wind is blowing, people. He's a politician who wants to be president. Chidi Nwoso, any thoughts on Jim Comey? Yes, I said this before, but I'll say it again. The Jim Comey 8647 thing is so stupid on Jim Comey's part. Dude, just enjoy your vacation. Walk on the beach. Don't make a political statement. It's so stupid and unnecessary, and it just creates an opening. Now, do I think Kristi Noem and Tulsi Gabbard, he's saying he should assassinate the president? No, I don't think that people are saying, I don't think that's what Jim Comey meant. But Donald Trump has survived 2 assassination attempts. He has death threats. We know the Iranians were trying to kill him. Like, just don't do it. Why do it? Walk on the beach. Put your phone away. Throw your phone into the ocean. So stupid. Chaitanya Kandwal. Hey, Chris, huge fan. Thank you. Kind of a big picture question here. How much of Trump's appeal since 2016 is due to economic issues, inequality, manufacturing, and how much about social issues? Okay, I'm going to go with option C. Not really either of those. Trump's appeal to me is almost all tonal. He's tough. He's tough. I mean, he says he's tough, right? He says the things you only think and are too afraid to say. He stares down and does stuff that other politicians would never do. It's not really, to me, about like the border or his economic policies or his foreign policy or social. I mean, on social issues, candidly, he's had more positions similar to Democrats than Republicans. It's all tonal. It's vibes, right? People think he's tough. He's a good deal maker, whatever. So much of his appeal is that. And by the way, I'll go back to what I mentioned earlier about Democrats. You know, if you ask focus groups, say one word that comes to mind when you say Democrat, a lot of them will say weak. Trump is the opposite of that. Like, you may not agree with him, you may not love his style, but he's tough. He's fighting like hell. People like that. Gloria Diaz. Are Republicans not concerned about Republican branding with the whole mess going on? I don't know what you mean about whole mess. They do not appear to be concerned about Republican branding. I will say that. David Johnson. Hey, Chris, your thoughts about the Omaha, Nebraska electing its first Democratic mayor since 2012 and first African-American mayor ever. Big deal, little deal, or no deal? I'd say little deal. It's a mayoral race. You know, I mean, that's like, I think we have to be careful of over analyzing it. I mean, remember going into 2024, Democrats were on the streak of winning special elections and overperforming in all these state house and state senate districts, and then Trump won. So it's like, maybe it's a signal, but also maybe it's not. You know, Omaha is the liberalist place in Nebraska. I don't think it's stunning that a Democrat won. If a Democrat got elected statewide, that would be more interesting to me. So I'll say little deal right now. Adam Matejek, in your pitch, you discussed being independent from legacy media and free to report what you want. But was there ever a time in your career when you felt pressure from the higher ups to suppress a story? Adam, thank you for asking that. So no is the answer. And I know the popular answer and the way to get a bunch of subscribers is to be like, the man was silencing me and now I'm unbound and unsilenced. No, I work for good people. Jeff Zucker, Marty Barron at CNN and the Washington Post. They were good people. They never pressured me to write or not write anything. What I would say is, I just think that the reality of the current media environment is that the people who own legacy media are billionaires, right? Jeff Bezos, Rupert Murdoch, or a massive corporate conglomerate like Warner Brothers Discovery, which owns CNN. Those people are not going to put the journalism first. They're just not. They're going to focus on making money. That's what those people do. I can do that. So my point is, I can put the journalism first. I do not need to make $50 million. I mean, it'd be great if I did, but I don't need to make $50 million. They do. I mean, they need to make much more than $50 million. So I just think that frees me up in some way. But no, again, I know it would get me more subscribers and probably get more of you to donate if I was like, and they told me I couldn't say what I wanted, but now I'm going to tell you how it really is. I mean, I'm more able to be like more myself now because it's just me, right? Like I'm not answering. It's not, I don't represent CNN. I don't represent the Washington Post. I represent Chris Cillizza. So it's like, this is me. This is who I am. So I'm a little probably more authentic, a little bit more honest, a little bit more transparent about what I do and how I do it. But I'm not like, I was never silenced, to answer your question. Michael Stravelli, camera suggestion. Get a mic stand with a boom and mount your camera to it so it's not touching your desk, which moves a lot. Michael, so here's the issue, just so people know my setup. I have a mic that, Rode mic that many of you helped finance, that I think works pretty well. I have a Logitech camera mounted on my monitor, which is up here. The problem is when I bang the table, it bangs the monitor. So I have to become less demonstrative or find a better place to mount the camera. If people have ideas, like my issue is the camera mounts like this. If I put it on a boom, wouldn't it mount vertically and that would look weird? I don't know. And Cillizzac@gmail.com. Any and all suggestions are very, very welcome. Christian Eckstein, do you think RFK has been more effective in his job than expected? He has banned many additives and food colors with known health effects that have been banned in other advanced economies for years. So, look, here's my broad take on RFK Jr. 30 to 40% of the time, what he says, I'm like, yes. Why are there dyes and additives that are illegal in Europe that we can put in our food? We should get rid of those. I mean, the reason is because those companies have big lobbying operations that have kept them legal. But the point is, yes, I agree with them 30 to 40% of the time. The issue is the other 60% of the time when he's talking about like measles and the COVID vaccine and swimming in lakes that you're not, or in Rock Creek Park where you're not supposed to swim. I'm like, and that stuff gets more attention. So I don't know if he's been more effective. I just don't think he's wrong 100% of the time. I think some of the stuff he does makes a lot of sense. And I've often wondered, why do we have red dye and all, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not a hater, but at the same time, I think his judgment and the fights he chooses to take on are not great. Brent Green says, congrats on almost hitting 84,000 subs. Booyah! I know, we're getting there. Royal T, hey Chris, huge fan. Should be worried? Should I be worried as a postal worker about our new postmaster general being a former member of the FedEx board? Well, look, I got hired at CNN by two people, Jeff Zucker and Andrew Morse. 5 years later, I got let go by CNN. Neither Jeff Zucker nor Andrew Morse worked there anymore, nor did anyone who was in the room when I got hired. So when you have a change in leadership, I think you should always be mindful that that could be a change. I don't know enough about the Postal Service, the new guy. I don't know, but my experience suggests, yes, I don't know if you should be worried, but you should absolutely be aware that with change comes change. Luke Groth, hey, Chris, what's going on in the New York mayoral race? I think Andrew Cuomo is going to win. Eric Adams is running as an independent. The current Democratic got elected as a Democrat mayor, is running as an independent. I think I'd be surprised if Andrew Cuomo is not your next governor, next mayor of New York. Herr Benrath, hey, Chris, Canadian living in Germany. Can you please explain to a non-American how American culture has come to accepting Trump behavior while other countries would have removed? So I think that, and we've seen this over the years that, and Trump is obviously the most extreme example of this, but over the years, we've seen that character is no longer disqualifying to the American public when it comes to choosing their leaders. And what I mean by that is like, Bill Clinton sleeping with an intern and, yeah, some people didn't like it. Yeah, he got impeached, but he stayed in office and he's pretty popular now. Like Donald Trump being married 3 times. And so I just don't think character disqualifies. I think most people in America think that their politicians are kind of corrupt and scummy. And so when they behave that way, they're like, so I also think there's, look, divorce is much more common in the U.S. and accepted than it was before. Like we're becoming more permissive about a lot of these social mores. And so I think it makes sense that our leaders would reflect that. Why other nations aren't is a question I am not equipped to answer. I would love to hear your theories. MJ Jewell. MJ, thank you for your donation. MJ says, what's your educational background? I'm considering a master's in political science. I mean, I think that would be fascinating. So I am relatively undereducated. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree it's an English major, and that's it. So a lot of what I've learned about politics and government has come post-college and not through a traditional academic avenue. I don't know if that's a good thing, a bad thing, or an indifferent thing, but that's been my experience. Yog Ball, why is Kristi Noem so vicious and cruel? Well, my guess is you're a Democrat or a liberal and you don't like her. For if you're a Republican, a MAGA type, you would say Kristi Noem's a star. She's tough and she gets it. A lot of it's in the eye of the beholder. What I will say about Kristi Noem is she's clearly on the very performative end of politics, right? She's going on raids with ICE. She's carrying the gun. She's got the cowboy hat on at the border. She's very into how it all looks. And I don't think that's the dumbest thing when Donald Trump's president of the United States. I say this over and over again. The best way to understand Trump, he views it as a reality TV show every day that he is programming and starring in. And so when someone like Kristi Noem is clearly kind of positioning to play a starring role there, I get it, even if I wouldn't necessarily support sort of like, I think we'd be better to worry about policy rather than performance. But H, heard your vid on Mayor Pete. If he gets it, I would vote for him. But honestly, people will not vote for him and his husband to be in the White House. It'll be 100 years before anything like that happens. Maybe. Again, I don't know. I think it is a hurdle and something he's going to have to address, right? His sexuality we've never had a gay president for it. Just like Kennedy, when we never had a Catholic president, Kennedy had to address it. When we never had a black president, Obama addressed it. I think he will, if he is successful, he will have to do it. I don't know if it's 100 years. Look, it surprises me that this country elected easily to two terms, a black guy named Barack Obama, but we did. So, Michael Gates, hey, Chris, do you think people tend to laugh about Trump's obsession with royalty because the U.S. never had institutional royalty with all its pomp and cultural significance? Yeah, I think people roll their eyes a little bit in general about Trump. I think a lot of people who like him don't take everything that he says particularly seriously. They're like, oh, God, they think he's kind of funny. So sure, yeah. Christopher Simon, non-political question. Why, when, and how did you get into journalism, and what advice do you give to aspiring journalists? Great question. So I kind of backed into it a little bit. I wrote for my high school paper and some of those things, but I didn't write for the college paper. And I wasn't in a journalism major. They didn't even have a journalism major where I went to school. And then I started working right out of college for a guy named Charlie Cook, who was a political handicapper. He's now retired. And so I kind of got into politics and journalism that way. I wasn't into politics or journalism prior to that. So I really just realized that I really liked it. It was really fun. And then I went to, and I decided, okay, I want to be like a reporter. So then I went and worked at Roll Call newspaper, which still exists, covers Capitol Hill. I did that, then the Washington Post, then CNN, now this. So I don't have the kind of traditional training that a lot of people do. I did not go to graduate school for journalism. I did not major in journalism in undergrad. I've kind of learned by doing. And I would say that that is what I would tell aspiring young journalists. Like, now more than ever, there is opportunity out there. You do not have to work at one of these big legacy media places to matter. You can matter with a YouTube channel or a Substack or even an Instagram or a TikTok handle. And that's really, really cool and empowering. So don't feel like you have to go the traditional route. We have over 250 people on this. That makes me so happy. We only have 109 likes. Give it the like, my friends. Let's keep going. Somebody said, do the Knicks win tonight? Yes, I said earlier, I think the Knicks do win tonight in 6. And I like the Knicks to go to the NBA championship. Let's see. Okay, Barry Riley says, I loved your t-shirt. Thank you. It was just a nice t-shirt. Poemi says, let the guy wear what he wants. Catherine Wood, you did look good with your white t-shirt. Okay, things are happening for me. Lucchese 20, Fashion Police, t-shirt didn't look all that good. Sorry, by the way, great content. David Johnson, I really liked you in your white t-shirt earlier this week. Kornheiser 10 says, sure, Jan. I see what you're doing there. Okay. They call me Blake. The selection of an American Pope was incredibly surprising, but then I heard he went to Villanova, and suddenly I'm no longer so excited about him. You mean Villanova fun? Cam Leitner, presidents have been increasing presidential power for a while over the other branches. Do you see this as a problem, and do you expect it to continue? Yes, and yes. It absolutely will continue. The next president, let's say it's a Democrat, the next president is not going to say, oh, Donald Trump had all this power in the executive. Let me give it all back. No chance. And yes, it's a problem. There were co-equal branches for a reason, right? Judicial, executive, legislative. When it's judicial, when it's executive, judicial, the floor, legislative, it's a problem. Yes. Let's see. RBH 2021. Thank you for your donation, my friend. And RBH says, what was your favorite English class in college? This is a weird one, but I really like the teacher, and I took it when I was either a junior or senior, so I kind of knew how things worked a little bit more. Russian literature. We did Brothers Karamazov. We did some Gogol. Loved it. I really like that class. I still think about that class all the time. Yeah, Russian literature. Good class. Joe Mama. Joe, thank you for your increased donation. Very much appreciated. Big plank on wheels, 6'1" side foam, green sheet on other. Keep behind the PC on foam side recording. Bring behind you, turn around to green for editing. I know this is advice on how to make the sound and the look be good, but Joe, you got to talk less in business lingo or technical lingo. Send me an email, cillizzac@gmail.com, and explain to me what you mean. I very much appreciate your thoughts, and I want to put them into action. MJ Jewel. MJ, thank you for the donation. MJ says, why is conservative media not considered mainstream? They outpace the left, and after 24, conservative ideologies seem mainstream. I hate the term mainstream media. I don't know what that means. If it ever meant something, I'm not sure it means anything now. I prefer legacy media, which is like these big legacy companies that have been around for a long time, and then independent media. I think that's a much better way to understand it than like conservative, liberal, mainstream. Who decides the mainstream, to your point? I hate that. I don't like that terminology, and I wish we could just drop it. But so I do legacy media unless I slip and say mainstream, but I almost try to say legacy media, independent media. I think that's the way to think about it. Let's see. Oh gosh, a lot of fighting in the comments. Dennis Fursco says, when do you think Buttigieg, other Dems will announce a presidential run? Not until after 2026. So if you're a Democrat, you want to even if you're going to run for president, you want to say stuff like, I'm laser focused on winning the House and Senate back for Democrats in 2026, because that makes it look like you're supporting the party and not just focused on your own interests. Of course, you're also focused on your own interests, but so no one will, I don't think, no one serious will announce until after the 2026 midterms. But I would assume by the end of 2026, so by the end of next year, we've got 2 or 3 people in, maybe by that point, maybe more. And by February or March of that year, we've got 8 or 9 in. I think it'll start very quickly. Cam Leitner, Cam, I missed this donation. Thank you. That's incredibly kind of you. Keenan Weiss-Shadle says, Coys, come on, you Spurs. We are terrible right now. Yes, Tottenham is my EPL team. My kids' team is Liverpool. They are living the dream over these last 5 years. I am not living the dream. I still remember when we had Luka Modric and Gareth Bale, and we don't anymore. D-Slav 2488. My top 5 candidates: AOC, Whitmer, Westmore, Crockett, Harris, Mallory McMorrow. Well, Mallory McMorrow's got to get elected to the Senate, the U.S. Senate, I think, before she can run for president. She's a state senator. Jasmine Crockett, I don't see it. I don't see her running for president. I could be wrong, but Westmore, yes, for sure. AOC, Whitmer, for sure. So I would take 3 of those, and I could see Westmore making kind of a finals with like an AOC and maybe one other person, but I do not see Jasmine Crockett. Michael Gardner, big picture question. Based on your experience in covering politics, what do you think are the main sources of actual political power? Is it money or voters? What is it really? I mean, money matters hugely. But movements also matter. Howard Dean in 2004. I know he lost. I know he did that. Yeah, right, and kind of disqualified himself. But, you know, he built, people liked his ideas. They liked the way he talked. They liked the fact that he wasn't an insider. Like, I think that there's real power. If you can coalesce what people are, and Trump is a great example of this, coalesce what people are thinking, and they either don't want to say it or they can't figure out the right way to say it yet. If you can be that person, it's really powerful. And no matter how much money the people against you have, it probably won't be enough. So if I had to choose, I would take a people-powered movement, but you have to have real people power, right? It has to be an actual movement, not just you saying it's a movement. Let me see if I can fit a few more in here. There's obviously a lot of Jasmine Crockett fighting in the comments. Adrian Weber says CNN would have never let him wear an undershirt. It was not an undershirt. I have undershirts. It was a nice white t-shirt. Yeah. And yes, CNN would not allow that. Seahorn says, Chris, can I ask you about the Nationals? LOL. Oh my gosh, why are we so bad? Why does Josh Bell play every day? He's hitting 137. Derek Rawlings. Camera shake makes you sound more emphatic. So I've tried to move away from my desk so I'm not banging. My desk is right here if you can't see it. I'm not banging my desk, so hopefully it doesn't move the camera as much, but I am an emphatic guy. Bill Reeve, I perceive that Pete Buttigieg has grown a beard and uses F-bombs occasionally to make him look a little tougher and less weak. Do you think this is a good strategy on his part? I did see he has a beard. I did see he's cursing a little bit more. Again, I think Democrats' biggest problem is that people think they're weak. So, you know, like, yeah, you might write that off as empty symbolism, but if it works, it works. I don't know. Billy D and the Hoodoos. Billy D is responding to someone. Sorry, Billy D. Ken, hello from Frankfurt. I love Germany. Hello, Germany. I wanted to ask if you think democracy in Germany has deficits like Vance and other Republicans say. I don't know what you mean by deficits. I assume you don't mean budget deficits. You mean like shortcomings? I mean, I think every democracy has some shortcomings. Master failure. You might need a gimbal-mounted camera for that level of expressiveness. The only time I've ever heard the word gimbal is when I was watching what's that movie with Tom Hanks about space? Dang it, I can't remember. But I was watching that. We need to move the gimbal. Let's see. Jason Pengo. Why is anyone still talking about Biden? Oh yeah, Republicans deflecting. No. It's not just Republicans deflecting. This guy was the president of the United States for 4 years and thought he could run and be president for 4 more years. You can think Donald Trump is terrible and doing terrible things as president, but you can also think that this is a story worthy of covering. That there appears, to me at least, to have been an active cover-up from people close to Joe Biden about his condition, from the media, from the public, and even from people in the White House. Go read Original Sin when it comes out on Tuesday. Trust me. This is not a Republican-created issue. Joe Biden should not have sought re-election. There were signs he was deteriorating as far back as late 2022. Young James to Professor Kenny. Hi, Chris. Do you think Trump has changed his tune on Putin and finally realizes he's a bad guy? No, I don't. Donald Trump wants to make a deal. He is purely transactional. He wants to make a deal because he thinks that making a deal will win him the Nobel Peace Prize. He thinks that because Russia is bigger and more powerful, they are the ones who probably are going to be more critical in making that Ukraine deal with Ukraine. So he operates with Putin. I don't think he's any more complicated than that. I don't think he thinks he's a good guy or a bad guy. He just thinks he's a guy who can get stuff done. Now, I don't know if that's true, or wants to get stuff done, but that's how Trump thinks. That's I know it's like brass tacks, but it's true. Robert, New York. Robert, thank you for the donation. Chris, why are the Dems not giving us a solution rather than anti-Trump rhetoric? Also, do you give him credit for the positive things he has done for the country? So I think you're right, Robert, that Democrats are still too focused on being anti-Trump as opposed to being pro whatever they want to be pro. I think that will come in time, but if it doesn't, they're in deep trouble. Do I give him credit for the positive things he's done for the country? I mean, sure. Like, I try to take every idea at face value. I don't think it's a good idea or a bad idea because of who proposed it. This is the whole calling balls and strikes no matter what uniform the batter at the plate is wearing. I mean it when I say it. I think that a lot of Democrats are blind to anything good Donald Trump has done or will do because they hate him so much. The prescription drug thing, price controls, I mean, I think that's basically a Democratic idea. So I'm surprised more Democrats haven't been on board with it. For example, I would love to pay less for prescription drugs. So, I don't know if it can happen, but I don't have any issue with that. Worldwide Game Boy 56. Thank you, Worldwide, for your donation. Worldwide says we need a moderate. Moderates are smarter and lean left when it makes sense and lean right when it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to lean one direction in every issue. I'm tired of the far left and right. I, too, am tired of the far left and right. Again, though, I just think that kind of moderate versus liberal dynamic may not be the operating dynamic. I think it is be tough, fight for your values, stand up for your values, even when they might not be popular. I think that's what the Democratic brand is lacking more than it's like the solution is to nominate AOC or the solution is to nominate Andy Beshear from Kentucky. I think it's more who's going to fight, who's going to say, look, here's what I believe. You're not going to agree with me on everything. It's like me. You're not going to agree with me on everything, but I think in the main, you're going to say, I like that guy. I like what he does. I'm going to support him. I think it works for journalism, independent journalism, certainly. And I think it works for politics. And I think that's what Democrats need more than anything. Let's see. Just seeing if there's anything else out there. Oh, Jerry Calderon. I will sound off on this before I go. Jerry Calderon says, Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, put him in. I was never a fan of keeping Pete Rose or Shoeless Joe out. I'm glad that their ban has happened. Look, Pete Rose was a great player. Did he do some bad things? Yup. Did baseball collapse because of it? Nope. By the way, I'm fine with – I would put Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame, but I would still say that Babe Ruth holds the home run record because I think Barry Bonds was a great player without steroids. He was a better player with steroids, but he was a great player without. The game has not been destroyed. I think you, warts and all, Pete Rose, put him in, say Rose's legacy is complicated. He bet on baseball as a manager, but put him in. Again, we all have warts. No one is pure. No one is perfect. And I think the more we are open to acknowledging that and saying, we are going to celebrate the good he did while also acknowledging the bad things he did, the flaws he had, that to me is the direction we need to move in sports and in politics and in life. All right. On that, I'm going to end. I've done almost 50 minutes. I got to go change. Got to work out. Proper pumpitude. As always, thank you for your support. Thank you for checking this out. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Please, if you have not subscribed, do so. It's very easy. Tell people about what I'm doing. Do me a favor and go check out my Substack, chriscillizza.substack.com. Just fiddle around in there. If you feel like you want to support the kind of independent journalism I am trying to incubate and do, I hope you either make a donation here, become a paid subscriber over there. Go to Buy Me a Coffee and make a donation there. Every little bit truly does help. I am thankful for it. And it's the only way that I can continue to do what I'm doing. So thank you all. Enjoy your weekend. I'm going to go work out. Take care.